Hello and welcome to the Bandwagon Podcast, the show where we take a deep dive into the music industry. I'm your host Charlie Cooper and my guest this week is Bryony Williams. Bryony is a singer-songwriter who's a regular at festivals and has had several radio appearances, as well as having her music featured in a Netflix series. Today we discuss her career so far, a big hometown support slot, and her new album and tour. Bryony, thank you for joining me. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing very well, thank you.
Fantastic. It's really great to have you here. This is actually this show started with, pretty much everyone I've had on the show so far I've known, and you're the first person I've had on here that I don't know personally. So I'm really looking forward to this because I know a bit about your story and of course what I've seen on your social media and what we discussed in the build up to this. But I don't really know you, so there's a lot. I guess I'm hat there, and I'm thinking this will be a really good one for our sort of listeners of this show and your following as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's quite interesting then. If I'm the first kind of like almost stranger,
Yeah. I mean, I'm putting it this way. I've had people that I've been in bands with. I've had my wife. I've had people I know very well. My old guitar teacher. So this is very it's a very different take on it. So
yeah,
I guess my first question is, just from off the back of listening to your music, you go into quite a lot of very important personal themes, mental health, of course, relationships, personal growth. Can that sometimes be difficult to write about?
Yeah, definitely. I think I found that with songwriting, it kind of ebbs and flows.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess a lot of what my song lyrics draw inspiration from are like, I guess, unique personal experiences, which rather than just like the mundane, like daily life, I guess.
Sure.
So when life, I guess, is quite steady and which is good, but maybe not filled with random occurrences, then it can be a bit of a struggle to talk about because you think, well, what have I got to say?
Yeah, I get that. I've always, from a writing perspective, really struggled to write about personal stuff, and if you actually do listen to any of the stuff I've wrote, quite a lot of it's quite dark, and I thought, what does that say about me? I can only be creative when I'm morbidly depressed. What does that say?
Well, my dad always says the sad songs are the best, and I think,
absolutely, yeah,
you always resonate with them just a little bit more.
Certainly, when I think about it, a lot of sort of my favourite bands are bands like The Cure and Joy Division and the Smiths, and even a very different genre, but Linkin Park. All of those sort of very. I think, sadly, it's easier to connect to, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been independently working as an artist and recording, releasing music for some time now. Coming up 10 years. Is that right?
Pretty much, yeah. So it's 2024. Well, near the end of it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So.
Carry on.
Oh no, sorry. I was just going to ask you, what changes have you noticed in that time?
Oh, changes. Oh God, that's a big question.
It's a loaded question, that, isn't it?
Oh goodness. Well, I guess for myself, in terms of changes, is just. I don't even know. I don't know. I guess maybe just the explosion of social media.
Yeah.
And how that affects just pretty much a lot of the ways you think about your art and how you go about making it as well as an artist.
What about from a promotional point of view? So I actually had myself a really big gap from performing live, about 6-7 years actually, and I was still teaching and sort of tinkering around, but not really doing anything much on that. And I came back, and it was like was completely different world. I do think the pandemic had a lot to do with that. Well, from a sort of like a live performing perspective, maybe the attitude of audiences or the just the way that things are promoted, what difference have you noticed there?
I think good point with the pandemic, right? I think my mind always like glosses over it.
We
like
all
it
forget
never
about...
even happened.
We always do it. We say like 4 years ago, and it was actually like 6 because we've completely just pretend we've lost that 2 years.
Yeah, it's just like, a drop in the ocean, I guess, in a way.
Yeah.
But and I guess like no one was really up to much, I guess, in a typical way. And I think with them returning to music, after the pandemic. Because also I think I actually, after 2021, I had a bit of a break, maybe a year or two, basically away from making music, or at least in the public eye, in that sense. And then I guess when you return to it, the changes are actually the people as well, right? So you might have like contacts that you had a year, 2 years ago, and then you come back to them and, you know, they've gone.
Yeah, they're not in the game anymore for whatever reason. That's definitely something I can resonate with. And
then you kind of have to almost, like, again, it's shedding your skin, isn't it? You're kind of starting over
certainly
at different points.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you do perform live, of course you're a solo artist under your own name, but you record very much you know, you play with a band on your records. Do you have a set band that you perform live with? Do you do acoustically, but on the bigger shows you hire a session band? How does that work for you?
Yeah. Well, that's quite interesting at the moment, really, because so when I record, it's just myself and my producer. So it's just the two of us. So I'll go into the studio with like my song ideas, and essentially just together we'll flesh out those ideas and, you know, come out with what people can hear on streaming and on record. And then I have my set band together, who join me on live shows. But I also then, on the flip side, kind of do like solo shows, where it's more like obviously acoustic, more skeletal versions of the tracks. Pretty much how, you know, I originally written them, which I think, you know, there's like a beauty to that, kind of like showing the other side of them.
Yeah.
And also it's obviously easier to book gigs as a soloist, you know, you don't have to check 3 other people's schedules, balance of work and all that jazz.
You are preaching to the choir. You really are. I'm completely with you on that.
But basically, even last week, it probably was, I kind of made like a personal executive decision to myself as an independent artist that from 2025, I'm not going to do any solo shows anymore for the foreseeable future. And just try and hit the ground running with me and my band for the live shows, just so it really replicates what you can hear on record. And also it's a lot more fun.
It is, isn't it? That's the one thing I do miss about being a solo artist in the way that I do it, particularly when I do sort of like my pub gigs, paying the bills, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is I love turning up, setting up, playing, packing up, going home, not having no answer to anyone else. But it isn't the same, is it? When you're actually playing.
No, you miss the energy, and it's memory making, really, right? Like you bounce off other people, and yeah, it's so fun. Like it's my favorite time in life is literally just being with my band on stage, because there's just nothing like it.
Yeah,
yeah.
That team, that camaraderie you get with a band. I can imagine, you know, people who are in sports teams probably feel quite the same. You know, you can really rely on each other. You get to that point where you've got a good team of people. Yeah,
absolutely. Like we kind of obviously, you know, have a band group chat, and at the moment it's just quite alive, really, with activity. Just because I'm planning a tour for next year to coincide with my album coming out, but I'm also then just kind of reaching out to here, there, and everywhere with venues and promoters, just because I just want us to get out and play. You know, I just want to fill our schedule, fill our weekends with performing. And yeah, in the group chat. So thankfully, it's not just my voice. It is, like you say, like that team effort of like bouncing off ideas and, you know, sharing any useful kind of information, really.
So got a couple of questions, but one back to the what you said about the studio. So you say you go in, it's you and your producer. So are you playing everything we can hear? Do you use any sort of samples? Does the producer play any instruments with you? What's the setup there?
Yeah. So no samples, not used any samples before, but I do like the idea of that, to be honest. So maybe in the next record.
Watch this space, people.
Sorry?
I just said, watch this space, people.
Watch this space. Yeah. Watch this sample space. So yeah, me and my producer, so his name is Matthew Pinfield. So he has and I've known him since like the beginning of me making music. So we've known each other like nearly 10 years now. So I also consider him a really good friend as well, which obviously is lovely. It makes a really good working relationship.
Oh, definitely.
We work together really well, and that's basically why we've stayed making music together. And yeah, so he has a home studio set up in Wolverhampton, which is where I'm originally from. So it's always nice to go back and visit.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'll come into the studio, I'll have my guitar, I'll have my lyrics or half-written song sometimes, and we'll just work together and create it. So he's a drummer, so first we lay down the drums, and we kind of decide what the vibe of the song is going to be, and that pretty much relies quite heavily on the drums, especially once you've recorded them.
Yeah.
A pain to go back and re-record them in a different way. And then it'll come on to maybe the bass, I think, which, my producer, he will be also the bassist, which is wonderful. I could also, I did the bass for Trip Me Up. I will take that
Nice.
that credit. I did come up with that. But the rest, for the majority, it's Matthew on the bass. And then essentially I will layer down the main guitar from the original kind of idea, and also the lyrics, the vocals. And then we've kind of got our bass then. So we've got the drums, the bass, the vocals, the main vocals and the main guitar. And then that'll probably be a day work. So we'll come away, come back, and then essentially we just start layering it, any more guitar ideas, like lead, that's usually myself, and also Matt at the same time, kind of like 50-50 really. And then I'll sing more vocals, so like more harmonies, or harmonies really. We love harmonies on tracks.
I'm a big fan of getting harmonies. And when I've been in bands before, I've always been very key that I feel like I want everyone singing. I want to use that. I want to use and get those parts in. So I completely agree with you there. And something I've always saying to people, particularly younger bands who are maybe going to a studio for the first time, is you've really got to treat that producer like they're in the band, they're part of the project, and really trust them. I think that's so important. So, when you work with someone for as long as you have, did you find that bond with him come quite quickly, or did it take a little while to sort of get that sort of relationship clicked together? How did that work, or was it instantly I can work with this guy?
I think I'm quite trustworthy with other people, or naive. And I'm quite an open person really. So I think, meeting someone off the bat, I'm quite open and easy to, chat to and form those bonds quite quickly really. And I think, to be honest, with Matt himself, he's just very extroverted, whereas I think I'm quite introverted.
Oh, he's a drummer,
of course. So even if you're a bit shy or anything, or a bit reserved, like in Matt's approach, like that just doesn't even matter. You're being taken under his wing regardless. So it was really quite easy to click with Matt really. He's a lovely guy, and
fantastic.
So I was working with him when I was a teenager really. If it's 10 years ago, 9 years ago, I'm just about still a teenager. I would have probably been a bit shy, etc. And he kind of acted, and still does in a way as well, kind of like a mentor. But definitely back then as well, because for himself, he'd been in bands before. He even played Glastonbury just before Kate Nash, or after Kate Nash. So he does like to drop that in, like that he was on the same lineup, or even headlined after Kate Nash on a stage.
You would, wouldn't you, though?
Of course. I don't blame him at all. He'll be laughing when he hears this.
Fantastic.
Although fuming that I didn't get any of the details correct. But yeah, so yeah, we work really well, and it was just really nice to have him, especially at the beginning, as kind of like a mentor, really, because I don't think I really had anyone else, I guess, when making music at the very beginning, especially as an artist, or just someone who just wrote songs, I guess. Whether I even consider myself an artist back then, who knows?
So you're not from a musical family then?
Not really. I mean, I grew up listening to music. My dad is a huge music lover. He's really into like his prog rock. Mm-hmm. So we would grow up listening to the Beatles, Editors, The Cure.
I love Editors.
Nirvana. You love who? Sorry.
Editors.
Yeah, Editors, right?
Such a good band.
Right, throwback. Right,
yeah. The End Has a Start album, still probably one of my favourite albums just of all time. It's so good.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to listen to that on CD all the time.
Yeah, and I was in a band that covered Munich once, and such a good song.
It is. It absolutely is. So it's just, so I kind of grew up on a lot of music, and my dad like loves that. Like he takes a lot of pride in that as well. Like, there's a story somewhere where, in the car, listening to CDs or maybe even cassette, depending on which car, that there was this one time he pulled up in our driveway, like mid-song, and was like, right, time to get out. And I was like, no, the song hasn't finished.
Yeah.
And just loving it in the back seat.
Yeah.
So I think from a very young age, I think that kind of, that music love, that music drive was with me. But yeah, in terms of growing up and with parents, no like musical players.
Yeah, it's funny. It's exactly the same with me. My mum and dad both love music. When they were young and first together, they used to go and see a lot of bands. And back when bands used to tour the small towns, my dad would see bands like The Clash and The Specials and UB40 just in the Leisure Centre at Crawley, and The Cure are from Crawley, so we'd go to see them. And so that kind of, I'd always was into it and really liked what I was hearing. Got a guitar, started having lessons, and that's that. But from a musical point of view, my parents would make a better noise with guitar if they tracked it down the stairs, if I'm completely honest with you. They'd probably sing better as well, but they won't mind me saying that. No. So, but they do know their music, and I think when I was 14, they took me to a big concert. I think it was Red Hot Chili Peppers, something like that. Yeah, it was, and me and my dad would go to a lot of bands together, and we'd go see people like the Stranglers and From the Jam and Weller and those kind of bands that he grew up with, that I then grew up with because of him. And I think it is nice, that story, and it's funny how your parents can have that influence on you musically, even without them necessarily playing anything. Yeah,
absolutely, and that's what you've just said about your journey. Is very like a mirror version of myself, really. Especially the gig thing.
yeah, definitely. I can remember going some of the stuff I've gone to with. I'd say to my friends like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I'm going to see. I know Peter Hook, and they're like, "Oh, well, who am I? Just my dad." I'm like, what? I'm like, yeah, like why wouldn't I? And people found that quite funny.
Yeah, well, my dad's also a big Peter Hook fan.
Yeah, it's fantastic, fantastic. See, last time I see him was at it was at a festival, Victorious in Portsmouth.
Okay.
And he played a couple of slots before Madness, and I was really buzzing, and my wife didn't know too much about him. I was like, he's the bass player of Joy Division in New Order, he's going to do all their stuff. And she was like, oh my God, wow. Like, yeah, okay, great. This is going to be quality. So, and he was. But I mean, moving from the production and sort of the inspiration side of it for you, with your actual influences as far as actual bands go. I mean, I just from listening to music, I can probably guess a few. But let's hear it from you. Who were the bands or are the bands that you listen to that you draw inspiration from, and what made you want to pick up a guitar in the first place?
Yeah, well, I'd be interested. I'm definitely interested in hearing what bands you think.
Okay.
Because I think it's always quite hard sometimes to think back. But I think, yeah, when growing up in my teens era, which is when I, started like yourself, picked up a guitar, had some lessons, and then was kind of self-taught at the same time, and started writing songs in my journal as a hormonal teenager. I guess back then I was quite into my heavier rock, to be honest. I was listening to early Paramore quite a lot, Nirvana, and then kind of going more into the heavier scene, like Bullet for My Valentine.
Oh, really? Okay.
And Asking Alexandria and stuff like that. But whether or not, I don't think they necessarily influenced the music that I actually produce now. Or back then. But yeah, I was definitely in my but I guess influenced me in the sense of being really emo.
Yeah, angsty.
And the songwriting and angsty, and being really raw and I guess brave in a way to write these kind of really personal, like you say, journal lyrics. And then kind of not even, well, again, bringing it back to naivety, whether I just didn't, or whether I just simply didn't care, of videoing myself in my bedroom, playing an original song on my guitar and putting it up on YouTube, and not really caring what people thought. And I think that was really good.
That's key, isn't it? Not caring what people think. Really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I've had quite a lot of conversations with other people, other artists, and it kind of comes back to that sometimes, I don't want to put that out because I don't maybe necessarily have the answers of what I'll put out next, or blah, blah, blah. And then they'll just kind of sit on something that they've made and then kind of spiral a bit more. And I think if you've made something, just get it out and move on, just keep, and that's how you keep your momentum going and your own kind of growth as well as an artist.
Absolutely. So I guess then onto the bands that you do draw from now. I mean, do you want me to give you my guesses, or do you want to go and?
Well, to be fair, let's say, for myself, I think growing up we got Paramore, in terms of the rockier side of things, and then Florence and the Machine.
Oh, great!
Her, right, growing up at the Ting Tings.
Oh yeah, I remember the Ting Tings.
Another throwback. I'm full of them. And Kings of Leon. Nice,
yeah. Those were all good. So the one that I really guessed on was just hearing the a lot from the guitar tones. Actually, I was picking up on a lot of the new romantic kind of stuff, like The Cure, and bands like that. Is that something, or have I kind of just sort of have I misinterpreted that?
No, The Cure definitely. Yeah, I used to listen to The Cure again through my dad. A lot, and have thankfully seen The Cure live.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Wonderful. Although I hate to admit it, but I will on this anyway. It was at a festival, and they were playing for hours, and I just couldn't stay for the whole set.
I've heard some of their sets are really long. I think when I saw them, they played for about 2 hours, or an hour or something like that. It was a British summertime thing. I went with my brother. And it was World Cup quarterfinals, and we just beaten Sweden. So we watched that in a bar near Victoria, and then staggered up to Hyde Park, a complete mess, the two of us, and then watched The Cure. So it was a great afternoon and evening. They were on for a long time though.
Yeah, which is obviously great, of course, great. But then when your legs start to ache, you've got to look at your.
You're just waiting around I haven't played Love Cats yet, but I need a nap. What are we going to do?
Yeah, as long as I think they played The Forest, and I was like, okay, I can tap out now.
I'm done now. Yeah. It's why I saw them. It was their 40th anniversary gig.
Oh, amazing!
And they played So for Boys Don't Cry, Friday I'm in Love, but they actually said before, I said, we first played this song 40 years ago to the day in a pub in Crawley called The Rocket, which is now called The Railway, and it's somewhere that me and all my friends have all played multiple times. So just like what a moment, like to hear that from him, you know. And they've got a new album out now, don't they?
They do. They
Still
do.
Not listened to it yet?
No, they just got that one single out.
Oh, it's just the one single. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if the album was out or not yet.
I think so.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
I did listen to it, and I'm still yet to kind of make up my mind. I think it represents them now.
I see. Yep.
It's good, but yeah, it's quite repetitive. But
right,
that is also The Cure.
yeah, true. Yeah, they're one of those bands I think that have had such a huge impact, and they're so globally loved, and it's not surprised to hear that in your music. But so with the groups that I can see, you know, that you've worked with, you've supported some great acts like She Drew the Gun, and I thought this one really stood out to me. You supported James in your hometown. What was that like?
Well, that was great, to put it, you know, lightly. It's definitely my favorite, or at least one of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
Just also because it's been my biggest show ever to play so far. And it was really, really cool to be picked to play it, because they were going on tour. So this was, I think, after the pandemic. I'm going to say maybe it's 2021. So we're kind of emerging, kind of getting back out there, where we can actually go and play.
Of course,
yeah. Venues. And they were rehearsing there at the KK Steel Mill, I think. Anyway, someone told me anyway, whether that's completely correct. In Wolverhampton, which is like a huge like hangar kind of venue. I saw PJ Harvey there once as well. So that's,
wow.
So I'm, you know, thrilled that I've been on the same stage as PJ Harvey, as well as James. And so it was kind of like this competition that they kind of ran in partnership with a local record label called Wolves Records, where you could apply, you know, submit your music for the chance to open up for James as kind of like a warm-up show in the place that they'd been rehearsing for their tour, just before they went out on tour. So that's what I did, and they picked me. So I was
what an experience!
That's cool.
And what was it like? I'm guessing did you? I'm guessing you got to you crossed paths with them on the night, or met them on the night, and what was that like?
Yeah, well, you know how shows are. They can be, you know, quite rushed beforehand. So I met Tim Booth, kind of briefly. I was a little annoyed though. They ran over their sound check and cut into ours.
Oh, Tim.
Typical. But you know, obviously at the time I was like, oh, no worries.
Yeah.
You've got plenty. Like, I think they had like 3 different drum kits. So I mean
that's just audacious.
Yeah. But I was like, well, fair, we've only got one. And you know, we're just used to just rocking up and, you know, really quick sound check and playing anyway. So so I'm not complaining, because, you know, we had a dressing room, which, you know, again, or a green room, which, you know, again, can be a luxury.
How often do you get them, eh? You know, like, yeah.
I know. It's because we got the green room, and we had, although our beers were still warm, right? So we're not moving up in the world too quickly. And then we came out of the dressing room, and then we just saw this, like, these tables, this whole buffet of like different cheeses and grapes and like canapes, and I was like, is this for us? It wasn't.
Do you know, it's funny that we had a gig. It's actually at my most local venue to where I live recently, where I've spoken about. I won't go back too much. Spoken on the show a lot. A friend of ours in the community, who was a fantastic musician, sort of guy who'd help anyone out, passed away during the pandemic, and his producer finished his album. and we did a launch party for him, and it was great. And his wife organised it and sorted out this excellent green room with like fridge for the drinks, drink tokens for the bar as well. Everyone was battered by the end of the night, actually, and like proper rider and everything. And it was just amazing. We were all, some of these guys who were playing were in some pretty experienced touring bands, and we were being, no, don't get this often, do you? This is great. So, yeah, it's nice, those little things that come with the bigger shows, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's like what's on the other side, isn't it? It's and then it kind of gives you that kind of that motivation, that kick up the arse to be like, okay, well, that's what we're aspiring to. It's kind of like that reminder that you've still got a bit of a way to go, so let's get there.
Yeah, absolutely. You get a little taste of it, and then you kind of get back to your next pub gig where you're playing next to a fruit machine. You're like, okay, I've got some work to do here. So, with your involvement, you've also from a live point of view, you've been had some pretty success on the sort of things as a up and coming artist through the media, so stuff with BBC West Midlands Track of the Month and introducing and things like that. So how do you how has that impacted you moving forward? Did that get you a lot of new followers? Was it what was the feeling like when you realised you were going to be on sort of a Track of the Month or an introducing show?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, it was feeding into that kind of momentum, really. So this was back in 2019, so pre-pandemic, and that was quite a strong year for myself, really. And BBC introducing West Midlands had really been backing me quite a lot that particular year, where they named one of my songs Little Tree Track of the Month, and also named me as like an artist to watch as well. Mm-hmm. And I played a couple of BBC introducing stages as well at festivals, which was super super cool, because again, as an artist, it's so highly competitive to get on festival lineups, right? So I think that was kind of me and the band's first taste of them, really, because we played Camper Calling in Warwickshire, and really randomly, because we're in the West Midlands, and I don't think they did it ever again, but it was just a one-off event called the Peaky Blinders event.
Okay.
Because we're in Birmingham, and the BBC introducing had a stage there, which I played, and which was really random, but
it's a bit weird, isn't it? Actually, when you think about it.
Yeah, when you think about it, you're like, okay, that was quite gimmicky. And I don't really understand. It kind of feels like a fever dream, because also everyone dressed up.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that program, and I've got a lot of my family from the East End of London. There's a lot of links in with there from Peaky Blinders and the docs and everything. So I've always found it interesting from a historical point of view. But if someone said to me, "Oh, can you do music at a Peaky Blinders night?" I'd be very confused.
Yeah, it was an interesting overlap, but I mean that I guess comes with the job. But if it was good enough for Anna Calvi, because she was on the main stage.
Oh wow.
Then I was like, okay, well, it's good enough for her. It's good enough for me.
Absolutely. And then what was it like on the night? Was it a good show? Was it a good event all round?
Yeah, it was quite busy. I think it was I can't remember if it was just a day thing or a whole weekend. I think it was a whole weekend, looking back. So we kind of played in the daytime, which is always interesting as well. And then we just but it was good, because as soon as we finished, we could then just enjoy the rest of the festival, really. And by that, I mean, go see Anna Calvi, because I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, that's where it's nice. I was talking with, I do a radio show on a local radio station. I was interviewing a band who I've actually had on this show, who are friends of mine, and they were saying that the best part about playing the Why Not Festival was their artist wristbands, which got them backstage just everywhere if they wanted it, which was just, what an achievement, what a milestone when you get to do things like that, when
you kind of have that special access, and you're kind of like, am I allowed here? Am I meant to be here?
Yeah, it's funny quite often if I'm in them situations, because I'm I'm taking the mick a little bit, and no, I'm not meant to be there. But sort of just sort of trying to, you know what they say, fortune favours the bold sort of thing. So, but so with another sort of string to your bow here, you've had synchronization, and you've had music that's been played on TV programs. So, that fascinates me because I don't know anything about how that works. So can you just a little bit about so how did that happen? Was there an agency? Did they just find music and they contacted you? And what shows have you been featured in?
Yeah, so again, I guess with anything you don't know about it, and then you just almost like fall into it and do it, and then kind of uncover the pieces. But yeah, so we're in 2004 now, so I think this was last year. Where an agency, so we're like kind of like a music licensing company called Resistor, got in touch with me. So they had been commissioned, I believe, by BBC Studios to find the music for an up-and-coming TV series that was coming out called Phoenix Rise. And that was being shot in Coventry, I believe. So one of the requirements from BBC to Resistor was to use local artists' music.
Right.
And, you know, which is a really nice touch to keep it local.
Oh, definitely.
But also, maybe it was also influenced by their budget.
Might have had something to do with it, yeah.
You know, but you know, I'm not complaining. And this kind of scenario really shows the payoffs of being kind of like a bigger fish in a small pond. Right? Yeah. So, whereas, you know, say if you're down in London, you're a small fish in a big pond.
Yeah.
You know, so in this case, this kind of worked out in your favor, really. And Resistor got in touch via email, just propositioning me with having a song of mine on the show, on their first series. And this was to be, it was a bit cheeky, really. You're not gonna lie. They used one of my own songs as a reference, but were like, "Can you like make a song that sounds like it, but not obviously ripping off my own song too much, right?" But me and my producer Matthew, we were like, "Well, that's easy," you know. Basically rewriting a song that we've already done. And just making sure it's obviously got a different title and different lyrics, and maybe changing the key, and boom, one day's
and that's
work.
What capos are for.
Exactly. So we did it in a day, and sent it away back to Resistor to see if that's what they were angling for. Well, and also like with the brief that they'd sent me, they'd kind of said like, you know, the lyrics need to be about like this particular theme, etc. So that's just something else to kind of guide your music on, really, when you're given these little briefs. Sometimes it can be really vague, because you're given them by people who feel like maybe they know what they want, but also on the flip side, maybe also don't know what they want. So yeah, you're kind of given like a lyrical theme, because it's meant to be for maybe a certain scene in the TV series. And yeah, so I sent the song back. I believe it's called One Last Dance, which if you listen to my other song, I Can Be, you'll all know what I mean. And yeah, they approved it, or sent it back to BBC Studios, like their team or whatever, and they approved it as well. And we got a nice lump sum of money, which then funded my debut album. So Swings and Roundabouts.
That's incredible. That's incredible. You're then paying to make your music with music you've made.
Yeah.
You know,
which was really, you know, nice, really, because I've never, you know, received funding or anything for my music. It's always just been via money that I've made and saved. So to have, and also to record a full-on 10-track debut album, it's, you know, you're looking at a couple of grand.
Oh yeah.
Maybe even free, really, with mastering on top as well. So, and that's just for the music. So to
Yeah, that's
have
not with
that kind,
printing or distribution or artwork, nothing. Yeah.
yeah, like you don't even, without even factoring the extra costs in,
No.
really. So just, yeah, just for the music. So that was a really kind of nice moment, really, kind of a milestone for myself,
Yeah,
really.
of course. Yeah.
And they liked the song, so because and then it was featured on the credits, which I was even more buzzing about, because
Oh
sometimes
wow.
you're like, is it just going to be like 5 seconds, 10 seconds? You know, where in the series is it going to be? And I think it's on the finale episode, and it's in the last scene, and it then flows into the credits. So I'm like, yes, you know, I kind of got the kind of home run, really.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, because of that, they then, well, say not because of that, but because it was a success overall, they then commissioned series 2, and then asked me for season 2. You know, would I like to do a second song, which wasn't so much of a rip-off.
Yeah, no, it's really, it says a lot as well. I've been thinking this while you've been speaking about this. It says a lot about the fact that they approached you. You weren't sort of with an agency who was you know, with pluggers trying to get your music out there. They listened to you and approached you. It says a lot about the quality that you offer and what you must be like to work with, for the fact that, you know, they asked you something, you gave it to them, and they came back. Like that must be a great feeling. Like you've not sort of been knocking on the doors, you know, like I am with gigs, for example, you know, handing out business cards everywhere. It's a little bit like when someone I've never heard of, if anyone ever comes to me and offers me a gig rather than me canvassing for it. You know, that always feels much better. Did that feel good, the fact that they came to you?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And like, you know, I still do the hustle, still, you know, go to events, you know, with my business cards, and you know, reach out to other people, which is majority of the time that's what it's about, isn't it, really? So it's only a small sliver of times, really, when people reach out to you to, like, you know, collaborate in whatever sense. And I think that just shows then, like you say, like, you know, the quality of your work, but also I think it's just a result of all the work and effort and time that you've put in to
that compound
your
interest.
musicianship. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think it's just, I think it's like a reward, really.
Yeah, that's
A bit of a payoff.
definitely. I'm so pleased, because, you know, how many of us out there have you slog and you feel like it's not, you know, we all have things like, oh, is this going to happen? Is this worth it? And then to have a result like that, it just makes all of those gigs where that haven't gone so well, that haven't been promoted well enough, the difficulties, the difficult people, sometimes the tough audiences, it makes it all worthwhile when you get a payoff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, yeah, you know, you're not going to have success all the time.
No.
Like you say, you know, you could play a gig to a sold out show, and then you could play a gig the next night somewhere else, and, you know, maybe have 10 people on the door or something.
Yeah, funny enough, I had exactly that happen over the past 2 weekends. Exactly that. Well, I did a great gig at a brewery. It was packed. Everyone was really into it. And then I played another venue that I've played before that's normally really good. And for whatever reason, it wasn't on that particular night. And that's the roll of the dice sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. You know, you can only control what you can control, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's something to always kind of remind yourself sometimes, especially if, you know, maybe like, you know, at a gig where the turnout hasn't been that great, and you think, oh, well, what am I doing this for? What am I, you know? Yeah, it's just thinking, well, you know, you're here, and maybe, you know, someone is watching, you know, kind of picking up on that somewhere else that you just don't really know about. Same as the Resistor thing, right? Like I'd never heard of them prior to them reaching out, and I guess you just don't know who's watching.
No.
Right?
No, not at all. And I think the thing there as well, what you said there, I completely agree with everything you said about what you got to remember, you know, that you can only control what you control, and that's what I would tell anyone else. But as as my wife would tell you, I'm terrible at taking my own advice with that. I'm really bad. I beat myself up quite bad, and then she'll be saying to me, if this was one of my gigs, what would you be saying to me?
Yeah.
And I'm like, right, yeah, okay, and it's sort of comes back. So that's my thing. I'm probably not so good at, and that's clearly something for me to work on and look at. But no, I completely agree with you. Just I don't listen to it in the moment for some reason or another.
You just need to maybe like write it down. Like I have a thing of like just to kind of, whether it's music related or not, or just life related. I sometimes do, like if I see a quote that I really just kind of resonate with. Like a bit, maybe it's a motivational quote, let's say, right? I'll write it on like a post-it note and put it on my bathroom mirror. So it's just something that you kind of come back to on a daily without even like realizing it. So maybe you could do that with a gig thing.
Yeah, maybe I should. I mean, I had it with. You just reminded me of one of my corporate jobs I've had over the years. This team leader had an idea that everyone was going to write a motivational quote of the week on the board. And everyone's going to take it in turns. And it got to me, I couldn't think of anything. And all I could think of was an Eddie Izzard joke, which was, do you ever think Caesar thought he'd end up as a salad? And I was taken into the office and told I don't take anything seriously and I need to have a word with myself, basically. Which, to be fair, she was probably right, looking back at it. So yeah, maybe I do need to actually take that a bit seriously, because that is a good idea. And I've noticed having that when you're visualizing something. My wife's really into vision boards and things, and I really see the difference in her and her attitude towards things when she uses them. So that's sort of two people I'm hearing it from. So that's something I really should really pick up on.
Well, maybe your one going forward is just have a word with yourself. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I'll get a tattoo to my hand. Just look at it every now and then. So with moving on from sort of the music side of it with your actual performances and writing, something I've been fascinated to ask you about is the initiative that you started a while ago with, and I've only ever seen this written down, so forgive me. Girl Grown?
Yeah, you've got it.
Good. It reminded me of that Stones album, Grr. So I was just making sure I got it right. So it's such a big thing, and it's something that I've seen so much firsthand, and I've had this conversation before where you go to an open mic. So this is my wife's experience, for example. Goes to an open mic, guy with a guitar, her, guy with a guitar, And in one of my previous bands, we had a woman drummer, which was great, but to everyone else, it was such a big deal. And it used to really get on my nerves. So what have your experiences been around this sort of thing to make you start that magazine, fanzine? I'm not sure what the right word for it is. I apologise. And what have you seen and learned from doing that about people in the industry?
Yeah, so Girl Grown was like an idea and like an initiative that I kind of came up with in my last year of uni. So I went to Birmingham City Uni, so shout out there. Maybe they'll share the podcast.
maybe they should.
Bit of a partnership, sponsorship. And yeah, one of the modules was, to try and think about the local scene in this instance, and to hypothetically create a music company that would disrupt, like cause some kind of disruption from what currently exists. And during the time of this, I was playing the Birmingham music circuit quite a lot. Notably, I was playing like venues like the Sunflower Lounge and like the Hare and Hounds, and going to gigs on a weekly basis as well, just for as a punter, of course. And I guess I was really being influenced by like the Riot Girl movement as well at the time, and I was kind of becoming more aware with almost like gender studies as well through the course that I was on as well. So this kind of like accumulation kind of spouted the idea of this Girl Grown, and hence why the girl is like spelled like GRRRL.
Right.
Just roll of the R's.
Yeah.
Just a bit of an ode to the Riot Girl movement back in like the 90s with like Kathleen Hanna and the Tigra and Bikini Kill, and of course many more, which was all about, you know, women in predominantly like the punk scene, really, just shouting about all the kind of misogynistic attitudes that you would find in the music scenes, whether that be if you're a woman in the audience or on stage. And I think my own experience at that time is that I guess maybe I'd had a couple of, nothing crazy, but maybe a couple of like annoying instances, maybe at sound check or whatnot in terms of gigging. But also, I guess I just also felt like I was surrounded by like loads of like indie boy bands.
Yeah.
Which
I used to feel like that. I was one of them.
Yeah. Not that, you know, you're the enemy, but like I just guess I just felt like there was so much more from the indie scene, the local indie scene, that could be shouted about, but it just seemed to be like overshadowed by like kind of just typical indie boy bands, I guess.
Yeah.
So
skinny jeans and top drop t-shirts. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Which, you know, also nothing wrong.
No, not so.
It's just, I think I was just really eager to, you know, I was being really political at the time, and I was just really eager to like balance out like the voices and the representation in the scene. So, and also, you know, I loved being creative. So I was going to these gigs myself as well. Not to gigs that I was playing, but like, you know, just predominantly like the Hare and Hounds, like they have like loads of like touring artists playing their venue on a weekly basis, and I was going to them all the time. And from my own tastes, they predominantly were like female artists, female bands, but in like the indie genres. And I would go, you know, I'd have a pint or two for Dutch courage, and I'd get out my little camera and I would go and photograph these gigs. But I kind of wasn't really photographing them for anything. I was just doing it for fun. And then with the idea of Girl Grown, I was like, okay, well, actually put the two and two together, this idea and like these photos that I'm doing. I'm going to these gigs and, you know, going to these gigs that are predominantly female artists. Let's just turn it into a magazine, basically. Yeah. Long story short, let's just do it. And I didn't have to do it for the module. Like that was just the concept, you know, just kind of had to come up with a business plan. But I was so, you know, so motivated by it that I was like, no, I'm actually going to do this. So I teamed it with a friend of mine, Jess Webley, who she is also a music artist under the name Grey Wave. If anyone who's listening is into like grungy shoegaze kind of stuff, really good. And she was like the illustrator basically. So I would then go out to these gigs that I was already going to. I'd photograph the night. I would maybe get an interview as well with the artists, and just like right now, you know, just kind of chew the fat, just talk really, whether that was like for 5 minutes backstage or, you know, an hour, sometimes if you had the luxury. And I was actually amazed as well how easy it was to do that. Yeah. To get access to these artists, you know. Like there's one time I sat down with the band Heinz.
Oh wow.
At a big venue in Birmingham, and they were just there like eating some nuts, getting ready, and it was like you're just in their band like touring with them already, and it was just like so cool. And yeah, so yeah, we'd just make the magazines really, and just keep on interviewing artists, whether they were, no matter how like small or big they were, I guess, if you know, as long as they were, I guess, interesting really, or whatnot. It was just really fun to do, and also just to highlight the local scene as well, especially like Birmingham. You know, like it does get a bad rap, quite a bit, but there's always, in terms of the music scene, there's always something going on there.
Yeah, Birmingham seems like actually I always thought it's not quite a cool place. I've got family in Staffordshire, like you talked away. So yes. Birmingham's the nearest big city, and they they've always said it's quite a lot going on there. It's a good night out, good music scene, and it's somewhere I'd certainly like to get involved with playing at some point.
Yeah, there's literally like the hustle and bustle of Birmingham. Like it is huge, and there's always something going on. So this could also be sponsored by Birmingham Council.
Well, Crawley Council won't give me anything. I'll tell you what I can get, Bryony.
But yeah, and then Girl Grown, that it kind of stopped really with the pandemic.
Yeah.
Really, like we'd mostly focus on making these like zines, really, like these like say fanzines, and I'd sell them through the Girl Grown Bandcamp. So it's all very DIY, which was also fed into the ethos of it. And sometimes we'd host a gig or something like that, but at the same time, it's a lot of effort. So
oh yeah, putting on gigs is an effort. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the pandemic kind of happened, and it kind of got lost for a bit, and then it kind of made a bit of a comeback. And I can't remember who got in touch with me now, but someone from Camp Festival, the festival.
Oh yeah.
Because normally it's hosted in Dorset, and it still is every year, but they were branching out, and they were putting on a Camp Festival. It's always very fun to say that, in Shropshire, which is in the West Midlands. So they reached out to the Girl Grown and was like, "We love your like initiative of, kind of like gender equality in the music industry. Would you be interested in like for Girl Grown to kind of like take over one of the main stages on like one of the days of the festival?" And I said, yeah, of course, sure. And had absolutely no idea what I was getting myself into, have no experience in being a stage manager for a major festival. Although I do now, so that's good.
You learn quick.
Yeah, you do. You absolutely do. Especially the first year. Oh my gosh, And then we did that for a couple of years really. And I think this year is its last Camp Festival in Shropshire. I think they've done it for 2 or 3 years now running, and I think this year, the 2024, is their final time. I don't think they're coming back next year.
Oh wow!
Which is maybe they're just taking a little break, but that's absolutely fine. And so yeah, that was a really crazy experience because it was on their big top stage, which is their second largest stage at the festival. And the first year they wanted Girl Grown to take over the afternoon of the Friday, and then the second year they promoted it and promoted us to taking over the afternoon on the Saturday, which was insane, really. But they wanted like local acts that resonated with the whole ethos of Girl Grown. So of course, the first year I put myself and my band on.
Of course, why wouldn't
you? You've got to
you?
take your chances where you can.
Oh yeah.
And also Greywave Jess, who designed the magazines. I also put her band on as well, of course. I was following the guidelines, and yeah, so that was interesting. And then kind of since then, it's died down a little bit now. Just again, I've got almost like enough spinning plates going on, and I was kind of running that single-handedly. But it's always in the back of my mind to just start it back up again. So one day it will, absolutely.
Oh,
especially
good. I'll definitely keep my eyes open because it is such a thing that I think people don't necessarily realise unless they're in the scene, unless they're in the music scene. And I think it's just sometimes some of the like you said, you had some experiences that weren't necessarily extreme, but were just kind of frustrating, and the comments get made. For example, something that always sticks with me. I had somebody say to me, and it started off, when something starts off really, someone saying something really nice, and then one thing ruins it. And our drummer Kelly, who I knew from BIM, is fantastic, great person. Was a good friend of mine at college, and was great to be in a band with her for a year or so. And we'd done a gig. It was a good one. Can't remember exactly where it was, and someone said to me, someone you singer, people always gravitate to you to talk to you. They think you're the only one on the band sometimes, and was saying, yeah, it's great. I really like the sound of that. I said it's really good to see in a rock band to see a woman playing drums. I said, yeah, it's not something you see often, to be fair, but we love her. We love, she was the best person for the job. And she contributes a lot to the band. And then the guy said, yeah, she doesn't play like a girl. I was like, it was going so well.
Yeah,
I just like, what do I say to that?
Well, exactly. What do you say? It's like, it's just that kind of like unconscious bias, like people have. And that, I guess that just does stem from, I guess, his original point of like, well, yeah, you don't see that very often.
No,
or it's not like the kind of like the dominant norm, really.
Yeah.
Like when you like, there's this kind of like thing. Like if you ask someone, okay, like visualize like a scientist, most people would probably visualize like a white man in a lab coat, I guess.
Yeah.
And against this unconscious bias, because I mean, I do.
We've all got unconscious biases. All of us do.
Yeah.
It's natural, and I think that the important thing is to, I guess, grow and evolve with that. And I think possibly if that conversation had happened now, I'd probably have made more of a point of it. But at the time, I was a lot younger. I was about maybe 21, 22, something like that, and still sort of cutting my teeth in the game, and just and kind of was embarrassed for the guy. Whereas now there could have been, I guess, like a respectful educational point there, But it is tricky like that. And I notice I go to football a lot, and I notice more women and more young girls going to football, which is great. I notice as a guitar teacher more young girls I teach primary school to secondary school age, getting involved in music and having guitar lessons, and coming to me with songs they want to do. And it's, he's very encouraging. He's really encouraging. It's things like what you've done with Girl Grown is only going to really help foster that.
Yeah. It's just at the core of it is just adding to that representation. Because once it's more, I mean, it is normalized, of course.
Yeah.
Women have been making music for years and years and years. But I think, just having it more visual, and it kind of it's a process.
Yeah.
But it's just the more we do it, and I guess the more women we can get like in the limelight, I guess,
Definitely.
again, that kind of that unconscious bias kind of fades away, hopefully.
Yeah.
But I guess bringing it back to really quickly, like instances when gigging, when I was getting more motivated to start it. Really, one thing that I noticed with myself playing gigs a lot was a lot of like the older men would stand right like at the front of the stage whilst I was playing, even though like the room was half empty. And it just creates this like uncomfortableness.
Well, it's creepy,
really, because it's like you're literally an arm away from me and you're just like staring at me like for the whole set, which I'm glad you're enjoying it, but maybe like read the room, maybe look around and be like, okay, other people are kind of like hanging a bit of back, like just chilling, because it wasn't like, say if it's a packed room and you're in like sardines, then totally get it.
Yeah,
but if
nothing you can do about that. Yeah.
If that's not the case, then maybe, and it's just like, I don't know, like you're just trying to put yourself in their shoes, and you just think you just wouldn't. Like you would feel really awkward, and you'd be like, oh, actually, no, that maybe is a bit weird or a bit inconsiderate.
Massively.
I think that was a really common thing for me when playing, pre-pandemic, basically.
Yeah, it's not a good look, is it? It gives off real creep vibes. That.
Yeah, yeah. So I
Very,
just made
very.
sure they always bought merch.
You're like, you get anything out of it, you might as well, yeah.
Yeah, stick on another pound.
Yeah, the creep tax.
hmm
Yeah. So you've got an album coming out in 2025 and a UK headline tour.
Yes,
So let's
yes.
hear. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's quite big, huh?
Mm.
So yeah, so I recorded the album, and this nicely links back to the Phoenix Rise, the BBC thing, where I got the money to fund the album. So that was back in like 2022. So this album has been kind of almost just lying around gaining like digital dust for a while now. And that again kind of comes back to I kind of had taken myself out of the game a little bit, kind of fallen out of love a little bit with putting myself on social media a lot and promoting and stuff like that. And so I was quite reserved or unsure of like when and how to release it really. Um, but yeah, so this year I've been releasing singles from it. I finally got over that and was like, the best thing to do is just release it and then move on, start making something new, get it out there. So I started releasing singles from it this year, and it's coming out on as an album in February. I'm getting my test pressings back for it next week, which is very exciting as well. So it's going to
That
come
is
out
cool.
on vinyl, CD, and obviously digitally as well. And I'm going to make some t-shirts, and yeah, go out and gig. That's given me really the motivation to do that. So at the moment, obviously as an independent artist, I'm also having to plan my own tour. So I can't really say too much about tour dates at the moment, just since they haven't been finalised.
Sure, sure.
However, obviously Independent Venue Week is coming up, which I think is like the end of January,
Yeah.
where it's like an initiative for anyone listening who just maybe isn't sure. It's an initiative that's been going for like 12 years, I think, about almost like hyping up and giving representation for like the grassroots music venues, the smaller music venues, just because they're constantly being threatened of like, of course, like shutting down,
Oh, it's terrible,
money,
isn't it?
etc. So it's kind of a week just to really highlight those local grassroots venues.
Yeah.
So I was like, great, let's use that as like something for me to like use to sink my teeth into to get some gigs around that. So I will be playing in Stoke-on-Trent. Funnily enough, never played in Stoke before, good old Stoke. On Sunday, the 2nd of February, as a support for an artist called Lizzie Azu. And then on the Friday, so the last day of January, I believe, 31st of Jan, I'll be playing in my hometown of Wolverhampton. Not with James, not at KK Steel Mill, but as a headline at a place called Dive Bar, which I played earlier this year. A great little venue, but it's the most amount of stairs you will go up and down for
There's some
live
venues
music,
in London like that.
ever.
Yeah.
And then we're getting. I think we're just in the middle of confirming a gig in Northampton as well in January. So we're just looking at like weekends and just really promoting the album around the UK. Essentially, just having fun, getting the band out there, and just creating that buzz, have fun, get that momentum.
Yeah. And are you looking at sort of things down my neck of the woods, London, Brighton, Worthing, anything like that?
Yeah. So currently looking at a venue called Strong Rooms in Shoreditch.
Yep.
For as part of the tour, but also kind of in cahoots with a place called the Macbeth. Although I can't think whereabouts in London that is now. But that would be like quite a indie night really, because that won't be like via a promoter.
Yeah.
I guess myself would be the promoter, that'd be the case of like hiring
Yeah.
out a venue and kind of, doing the whole, like hosting the show and promoting the show, like all by yourself, but also of course bandmates and support acts, etc., and
Of
whoever else is
course.
involved. But which, as an artist who's used to then getting gigs via promoters, it's a bit unnerving, I guess. But it can be a bit of a risky move. But then you just think, let's try it out. Why not?
Yeah. No, I'll do my best to get along to a London show once you got it confirmed. I'm sort of just by Gatwick where we are, so I can get into London pretty easily. So I'd love to come along and support you on that and come down and try and get some people along.
Yeah, well, that'd be awesome. So thank you.
No worries. Cheers. Yeah, it's one of the things where it's like if I've got a night where I'm not working and someone I want to see is playing, I have to grab the opportunity. Because the amount of times I don't see bands I want to see because I'm working myself.
Yeah.
And you can't turn the work down. And it's tricky. It's tricky. But just take the opportunities where you can. So that Strong Room, I've been Strong Room. That is a really cool venue. That is really cool.
Okay. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, you'll like it. There, it's a good one. There's a few places as well. If you were looking to do anything on the coast that got some great places down in Brighton as well. That would, if you wanted to add a Brighton day, would be well worth looking at. So yeah, if you wanted to, I could talk to you about that offline. But yeah,
let's just do it now. The business meeting.
Yeah, everyone else switch off now. Come back for the outro.
That would really give the listeners like a real insight, wouldn't it? So
get the spreadsheet out.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, Bryony, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me. My last question is, with your album, what sort of thing can people expect? You've mentioned some of your influences and your music that's already out there. What's the main kind of feel to the album? What is it that people can look for?
Yeah, so the album, so it's my first ever album, and which is super exciting, but already I'm saying to myself, let's not do another album. It is a big body of work, and it can be just a lot to think about. But besides that, what is the album about? So essentially, the album is called You Are Here, and there's even a track on there called You Are Here, which for the first time ever, it's like just a live acoustic track of myself in the studio on the record, and I've never done that before. So that's a bit exciting. And that was the last track that was recorded for the album, which kind of summarizes what the album is about. Because there's a song on there that, I'd written originally like 8 years ago. And then there was newer songs on there that I'd written at the time of recording the album. So in 2022. For me, on a personal level, it's quite like a closure album, where it's a collection of 10 tracks that span from years apart, really, from like a song that I'd written maybe when I was 15 to songs now that I'd written at 27. And it's almost kind of like a mashup as well. There's not really one particular sound that drives it. Again, because it's such a collection of songs from different times of my life, and so therefore like different musical influences and etc. So you've got Trip Me Up on there, which is very much like Joy Division, The Cure, very like indie, and a lot of fun, very fast track. To then you've got like this You Are Here one, which is just me acoustically playing something. So yeah, the album itself it's just a host of different sounds that I've explored from when I first started making music, really, to up until now. And yeah, like I say, for myself, it's a closure album. So once it's out, I'm kind of able to put that to bed and carry on with maybe more so one like particular sound rather than just like a confusing host of them.
Sometimes that's good though. You get a lot of there's a lot of great hybrids to be had, out there when it comes to music genres and sounds.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like I guess the lyrically as well with the songs, you know, a lot of heartbreak features on that album. And, you know, it's not just about one person, you know, that's
Mm.
how like kind of, you know, in terms of like how far ago and in between the songs themselves were written
Yeah.
originally, you know. And it's been, you know, when recording it, which took some time because usually with my other records, I just book out like maybe a week, um, and we just record, you know, the record within that week. But for this album, it was like the odd day, the odd weekend throughout like a year. Um, and yeah, it was interesting then, you know, depending on which song you were working on, that you mentally you were kind of thrown back into the time when you first wrote it. Um, so yeah, which again feeds into, for myself anyway, why it's such a kind of, yeah, like a closure album. Um, so yeah.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much, Brian. This has been great. It's been great to have you on. Really fantastic story, and I really look forward to seeing what next year holds for you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to talk, really.
Oh,
And
thanks. Cheers.
hopefully everything I've been saying has made some kind of sense.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We'll. I really look forward to it, and of course, anyone listen to this, you look in the description of the podcast. There will be links to everything Bryony's doing.
Awesome.
Right. Thanks very much.
Okay, see ya.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye. You've been listening to the Bandwagon Podcast with me, Charlie Cooper. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the Bandwagon Pod, and follow us on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, and Amazon Music to keep up with future shows.